Hey, folks. My name is Dennis Truax. Thanks for joining us today as we have a conversation about the 21st century engineer. A lot of things are going on in the marketplace, a lot of things are going on in the profession, and we want to be as inviting and supportive of the next generation of engineers moving forward. Today, I have a guest with me, a good friend, a former student of mine, Jacob Forrester. And I think Jacob's got a story that I think you'll appreciate and learn from. And then, of course, Jacob's then becomes a resource for you to let you know just how impactful you can be. Uh, Whether it be through your servant leadership, whether it be through your subject area expertise, there's a lot of things that you can do. And I'm here, and this conversation is about opportunities for you to be better. So hopefully you'll learn something from it. And if not, I apologize for that. Look for you to get a positive return on your time investment. Jacob, thank you for agreeing to be with me today. It's a real pleasure to see you again.
Good morning, Dr. Truax. Thanks for having me on this program. Really
Nope.
appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. To get started, I've kind of framed out things. You've worked in every facet of this profession, much like I have as well, but in a very different way. Could you give us kind of a thumbnail as to what your background is?
Yeah, absolutely. Upon graduating with my bachelor's from Mississippi State University, I began working with a small general civil engineering firm, uh, doing design for water systems, wastewater systems, small municipal government type of application. And that was a great 7 or 8 years of my life there. Learned a great deal. Um, it was exciting. It was fun. It was great being of service to those small communities. And then I made a little bit of a career change, went into the route of government, began working for Mississippi State University, which is my alma mater, obviously. Did that for several years. Uh, got to oversee about $500 million worth of construction, and then moved on and got to oversee and kind of manage all of the utilities associated with the campus there in Starkville, Mississippi. Um, Subsequent to that, or after that, rather, I would say, I went to work with the city of Starkville, the local municipality here, where I was the assistant general manager of utilities. So I was able to oversee the water, wastewater, and electrical for the city. We serve about 50,000 customers, or we served when I was with them, I should say, since I'm no longer am. We served about 50,000 customers um, across this area for light and water and wastewater, and that was probably 4 or 5 years of my life, which I greatly enjoyed that service aspect as well. And then I suppose, as you've maybe suggested before, I could have gone brain dead and started my own business, I guess. Um, maybe brain dead is not the right way to say that, but I did begin a construction firm, and that is what I am doing now, and greatly enjoying that. It's been a fun, hectic, stressful, enjoyable ride. So I hope
Yeah,
that that answers your question.
it does, and at least in part. The term brain death is usually used by people that have never taken the plunge. Oftentimes, you'll have somebody both congratulate you and extend condolences at the same time. It's the same thing. But
Right.
the difference is you had the fortitude and the background and the vision to take the plunge, to take that step. And because of the diverse background you have, you've had a lot of experiences, you've developed a lot of expertise. I guess the question then becomes, you kind of suggested it, but would you elaborate on what you saw as really the maybe one aspect you found really enjoyable about each of the different opportunities engineering provided? The government piece, the consulting piece, the construction piece.
Sure. One of the things that I found in every part of my career um, to be important is the service aspect. In each case, I'm serving somebody. There's always a customer, there's always an owner, uh, but and there's always some kind of monetary transaction, some kind of work transaction there. But in each case, as long as I've viewed it as service, I'm able to enjoy what I'm doing. So serving people has been that tenet associated with that one thing that you just asked about. That's been the primary characteristic for each position that I've been in. Um, it's it's really interesting when you take it from that lens and look at the service aspect, because at times the job is no longer a job. It is something that you hold close. It's something that means a little bit more to you than just a job and work transaction.
Would you agree that, in effect, rather than just being a job, something you do from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 or whatever the hours are, it really becomes a profession, a career. And so, as some have said, if you get up going to work doing the thing you love to do, it's really not a job. And this service aspect, this changing lives that you have done and continue to do, is an important part of that. At least that's what I'm hearing resonate with you. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It transforms from what would be a job, what would just be an 8 to 5 or 7 to 3 or 9 to 5, whatever you want to say, into something a little bit more. It becomes part of your life. It becomes seeing people in the grocery store, them thanking you for doing whatever it is that you did. It becomes part of the community. It becomes part of your family. So yes, I absolutely agree that it becomes more than a job.
Yeah, and of course, you're a professional engineer, and the basic mantra, the basic requirement of all licensed engineers is to hold paramount the health, safety, and welfare of the public first and foremost. So this service piece certainly resonates and is embraced in your professionalism and the profession you've chosen, and the opportunities to be impactful, which you are every day in everything that you have and continue to do. And I've seen that first. I've seen that firsthand. And I see it reflected in you in the opportunities we've had to spend time together. The question, I guess, then that a lot of people might be concerned about, or again, that condolences piece we talked about, could you just summarize how the transition from one to the next impacted you and your family, and was it in obviously it wasn't insurmountable because you went on, but the question is, was it difficult for you, and did you find that what you had to do to make that transition at the end of the day worthwhile?
Yes. First and foremost, let me answer the impactful difficulty question. Yes, it is an impact. Anytime that you make any kind of a career change, anytime that you make a decision that impacts your life, but also your family's life, it is a difficult decision to make. Um, I would say that at times it's been hard. It's somewhat of an arduous grind, I suppose, if the word arduous is the correct adjective there. But you push through. You push through because again, it's not about the job; it's about the service and what you're providing. Um, the the difficulty associated with that is somewhat made easier, I suppose, with good support groups, good support from your family, good support from your friends, good support from those that you're working with. And one of the things that I've found is extremely important when making these life changes to proceed in my career and try to achieve the goals that I have personally has been discussion with my family, particularly with my wife. Um, she's been supportive at each stage, but it's not been something that we have just taken without sober reflection and sober discussion. We have great communication, and I would say that that has been paramount in ensuring that each of these steps have been successful. So, anytime that I've made a step, anytime that I've made a change, I sit down. We have very in-depth discussion. How is it going to affect our family? How is it going to affect and impact our community life, our society? What does it look like? And then we make that decision together. It's not just a singular decision on my part.
Well, it's noteworthy that Kylie, uh, the better half of your team, is also in
Absolutely.
a service position. So she's dedicated her life and continues to work strongly in an academic environment to try and be of service and support young people, the next generation that are coming through institutions. The one term I was kind of expecting you to use as civil engineer was foundation, and building a strong foundation in terms of your expertise is certainly part of that. And you've done that through the experiences you've had and your dedication to continuing education, continuing to learn,
Right.
getting an advanced degree, looking at the not taking the easy path, but accepting the challenges as you've taken on the different jobs you've taken on. But then, of course, then recognizing that you're not in this path alone, and so the balance of work and life or family has to play into this, and not having the support on the home front certainly would be undermining. And so it's great that you've got that team. It's great that you're moving forward in that regard. Let's talk a little bit about starting a business. Now, it's obviously scary when one goes to start a business because of the uncertainty. Showing up at a job that you did yesterday and having an expectation of what the week ahead or the day ahead is going to be, it provides a level of security. And I imagine probably at this point in your career, in this particular phase of your career, you've developed a certain level of security because you knew what yesterday was, what tomorrow is going to be, and you can plan for it. But when you start out on a business, that entrepreneurial piece kicks in, you think you've got the right answer, but does anybody else think you have the right answer? And so it is scary, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I will be fully honest and transparent that it is scary.
Okay.
One of the particular things that was the most scary to me, or uh, one of the highest considerations to me, was how to achieve cash flow. How do I transition such that I can continue supporting my family, um, but also supporting this business that I'm beginning, to get going. Um, that was the biggest question that I had when starting a business was, how is this all going to work? Financially, maybe sometimes civil engineers, certainly out of school, don't necessarily know the financial impacts associated, certainly with starting a business, but even going to work for uh, a small business. Small businesses are driven primarily upon cash flow and the ability to be able to pay the bills and move from one week or one month to the next. So that was the biggest hurdle that in my mind had to be overcome personally whenever I was considering beginning this business.
Yeah, and in the same sense, having started a business on my own, it really goes both ways. You can be not successful enough, but you can also be too successful. Successful. You can overextend yourself,
Sure.
and knowing when to back up. I mean, there's certainly a drive to succeed, but you can succeed your way into oblivion if you're not careful. And I know that you're balancing that today with, as I suggested at the outset, how much work can you take in the contract and move forward. That's great. Let me spin this just a little different way, if I may. With all of the angst and concern and all of the planning, what was the one thing that you found that you were really concerned about that just really wasn't that big of a concern?
You know, I'm not sure. It seems to still be something that I'm figuring out on a daily basis.
Okay.
But as far as that goes, we were talking about the cash flow. I think that that has somewhat been softened. Um, once you kind of get the ball rolling, it becomes somewhat of a flywheel, so that it continues, spinning a little bit on its own. It still takes a great deal of work to put energy into that flywheel just to make sure that it continues spinning, but it is no longer this major concern. It's no longer a heavy weight on my shoulders as far as that's concerned to make sure that the cash flow is working. Um, as long as we're doing what we need to be doing, as long as we're being diligent to our customers, then that cash flow uh, continues to take care of itself. And the pivot becomes a pivot from being as concerned and as heavily weighted uh, about those things when starting a business to now, how do I maintain this? How do I bring additional employees on and ensure that our ethos, that's the company name, is maintained? How do we ensure that we carry out our primary goals of good customer service, honesty, value, and integrity? And so that then pivots towards having to deal with employees and having to deal with human resource items, having to make sure that their needs are met so that the business's needs can be met. So I hope that that answers your question there.
It does, and in effect, the reality is once you are on your own, as it were, every day brings a new challenge. Uh,
Absolutely.
Developing inertia in the company, your flywheel analogy, uh, helps you transition from day to day with a level of security, but at the same time, a level of uncertainty. And of course, you're always having to make sure that, as with any business, you're always having to make sure that you're servicing the customer, that you're providing value, that you're doing the best quality work that you can, meeting or exceeding the expectations of the owner or whomever, and moving in a way that establishes reputation. That helps with inertia. Establishing financial worthiness, that helps with inertia, and helping, of course, then as you transition there to the end. And I think that's an equally, if not superior, a significant part of the conversation, and that's developing a workforce that you can rely on and trust. Otherwise, you're going to be a one man show. You're going to be a one person job provider or service provider, and that's very limiting. So in that transition, as you built a team, and employees that move forward, could you kind of frame it for us a little bit? Um, your relationship and your perspective as far as clients and employees a little further, with emphasis on employees. I know we've talked offline and come to a level of agreement that at the end of the day, regardless what it is, if you're in a service business, your employee really represents your biggest asset. Could you expand on what you're doing to try and build and support the employees of Ethos?
Sure. So what we're really talking about at this point is the culture of a business.
Yes.
Um, what that looks like, at least in my eyes, what I want our business to be viewed as is, again, a company that provides honesty, integrity, and value to that end customer. If there's ever a time um, that I don't that I have a feeling that that may not be occurring, that's the time that I view it as being uh, extremely important to insert myself into whatever is happening. Um, for the most part, you try to take a step back, let the employees do what they're supposed to do within the culture of the company. But if there's something that has occurred that causes a touch of a falter from the outside world looking towards your business, then I think that it's critical that, particularly me as the leader of this company, where the buck stops here, I need to get involved in that and make sure and take care of that as soon as possible. I've always heard it said that the longer you neglect something like that, the more it festers and becomes more and more irritated, and some things become terribly difficult to come back from if you let it fester too long. So that's that's something that I hold of extreme importance when dealing with customers, owners, anybody that we're serving is the importance of stepping in sooner rather than later, dealing with issues if they arise, not putting our employees into a position to fail, but putting them into a position to win and succeed and be part of that culture. So transitioning to the employees there, we recognize. I truly believe this that to have a successful business, we have to have successful employees. We have to have their basic needs met. If they're worried about how are they going to make the next bill payment, how are they going to feed their kids, then we're not doing just service to our employees. Now that comes with responsibility on their part. It's not just saying that free range, they can go and do whatever they want to in their personal lives, and we're going to help take care of any problems that arrive out of their personal lives. We're not saying that. We're saying that we're going to provide them a reasonable and correct compensation for the work that they're doing. We want them to be supported. We want them to have a good life in the community that they're serving. And so we start that off by making sure that we pay good wages. We make sure that we take care of our employees from a benefits standpoint. We have health care, we have time off, we have immediately where employees that may come. I've got a young man that's going to be having a baby soon, and we're really excited for him and his wife. They're looking forward to it, but he hasn't been here long. But we have sick leave readily available for him to utilize, or help leave for him to utilize, so that he can go on and take care of that responsibility. Uh, and it's important for him to be able to take care of that responsibility in his personal life. We have the ability to take a step back and take care of those things that we need to take care of here at the business to ensure that work continues on while he's gone. And so it is a balance. You want those employees to feel like they're valued. You want those employees also to feel a level of responsibility associated with not only their personal lives but also the business aspect. The more successful that the business is, we have set up that the more responsibility that, excuse me, the more successful that the employee is. And
Yeah.
so as a business benefits from their work, they benefit from their work.
Yeah, if the employee's successful, then the company's successful at the end of the day. If the employee's not being valued, isn't successful, it'll be reflected in the work that they do. And now you've got one of those festering problems you mentioned earlier that needs to be corrected. And it sounds to me, if I'm, and certainly correct me if I'm wrong, or amplified if I am correct. It sounds to me that you look at your employees much like a family. Obviously, not the family in the sense of, and you and the three and Kylie and the three kids, but more a matter of a family that you have a responsibility to. And just like a family, that responsibility is a shared thing, just like respect. I'll respect you you respect me, and we get along okay. Is that fair to say that you think of these individuals, you care enough about these individuals, have empathy for these individuals, that you're actually to some degree engaged in them individually, personally?
Yes, that is correct. I truly believe that empathy, to use your word, is one of those starting points. You know, to deal with people, you have to be able to understand what they're going through. You have to be able to put yourself in their shoes. You have to meet them at their level as best as you can. Um, but also, to use the family analogy, you also have to be responsible for them. I've got three young children, and I would say that if I do not correct them when they falter or when they do something that they shouldn't be doing, I am doing a disservice to them long term.
Sure.
So, in the same way, it's my responsibility to help and correct employees when they falter.
Well,
Also, as
it's
go
like
ahead.
grading homework papers. If everybody got an A on their homework, how would they ever
Right,
learn what was right or wrong? So you become responsible, and I say that as a academician, but I mean, the same deal. If how can you feel like punishing somebody if you've never explained to them what they should have been doing?
right, right. But it's also about praising them in the same way. When my children with my personal family do something correct, you know, I try to make it a point to say that's exactly what you needed to do. That's great. Good job. You did a wonderful job in this respect. And in the very much the same way, I should say. You know, I try my best to praise those employees whenever they have their wins. I think it's important to recognize that they have their wins. I don't think that a boss should only recognize when there's failures. I think that a leader should recognize when there's successes too, and help to call that to the employee's attention. I recognize that. I want you to know that I recognize that. Keep doing that. That's exactly what we're looking for in our culture of our business here.
The Now I'm going to put you on the spot, and
Okay.
I'm not asking you to name names or situations per se. The question, I guess, is how did you learn this style, this idea? The natural expectation would be for me to ask you the question, and if, in some ways I am. Have you gotten to this point because this is not the way you were treated when you worked for people, or is this more through observational learning?
Yeah. So I don't think that that's a simple answer. I think that
I
it's a
didn't expect it.
culmination. I think it's a culmination of several years of experience, both on the employee and employer side. I think that it's years of study. I've been working on my doctorate, which I've got to finish up here soon, and public policy and administration. There's a lot in that program about employee motivation. So I've been diligent about studying that. I've tried to reflect on personal experiences, both in the business world and outside of the business world, and just dealing with people in general. What do people respond to positively? What do people respond to negatively? And what things do you need to point out so that regardless of how they're going to respond initially to a negative stimuli, they need to know if there's a problem. Regardless of how they're going to respond to a positive stimuli, they need to know that they've done a good job. The only way for, in my mind, and I'm simplifying human beings here, the only way for a human being to know if they're doing right or wrong is from somebody giving them feedback. So I believe that feedback and what we're talking about here is communication as well. Communication is extremely important with those employees. So I've learned it through everything that I've done, all the way around. It's not just academia. It's not just experience personally in my life as an employee. It's not just experience from getting things wrong. It is a culmination of a career that I've had thus far, and that's what's led me to the point where I believe what I believe today.
What sounds to me like um, you recognized early in your life, and probably you can credit this to your folks, that you understood that life was a journey, that you were always open to learn. You were always looking for opportunities. Probably the reason you've moved to the different careers you have and have moved through this current career the way you have with such success. I mean, really, in the short term, you've been very successful by a lot of different metrics. And not just the size of the contracts or the amount of money that you're making, but the impact you're having and the position you have within your professional organizations and within the family and within the community and a vast array of other areas that your thumb is or forefinger or stuck in and you're engaging and again being impactful and I applaud you for that. This
Thank you.
openness also recognizes, I think, that when you moved into the workplace, you didn't have all the answers. You may have felt like you did. I know you were a winner when you walked out the door in a lot of ways, but just because you were a winner in one environment didn't necessarily mean you were going to be a winner in another. So you learned, you
Uh,
continue to grow, and I applaud you for that. It's part of the reason why I've invited you to have this conversation today. So that's great. And then you've indicated too that, and if I'm, as I understand you, you've taken this idea and moved it into your business model. This idea of empathy, this idea of caring, this idea of family has
right.
been one that you've used as a foundation. My word, because you wouldn't use it earlier, as a foundation for your business. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, I think that it is. One of I guess there's maybe four or five guiding principles for me, which my father instilled in me. To your point, that you mentioned a moment ago, that I learned that from my folks. My father and mother both instilled these principles in me. Fairness and honesty. Those are extremely important to me. Having empathy, caring about other people, caring about what you're doing, making sure that you are doing what you need to do so that you can lay your head down at night and rest easy, and you can wake up the next morning knowing that your kids or your family or anybody that you're representing is going to be proud of you. They're not going to be worried that you're going to be plastered on the front page of the newspaper. Those are some of the guiding principles. And then diligence and hard work is another principle. And the diligence and the hard work is something that my father has really instilled in me throughout my entire life, even to this day. You have to find reasons. You have to find reasons to push through. You can't find reasons to give up on something. You have to find a reason. You have to find a solution. You have to push through and get that taken care of. Now, a solution can also be giving something up. If it's something that you don't need to push through, or I should not say push through since I just said you have to push through. If it's something that you need to give up, something that is not ultimately going to be of benefit and be supported by those guiding principles, I should say, um, that I've decided to follow in my life, then it's something that I don't necessarily need to be involved in. And it's okay to give those up and let those go. Then it's also okay to take on something else if you need to. But it needs to kind of resonate with those guiding principles, in my opinion.
Yeah,
If it doesn't, then you're not going to be diligent in what you're doing. You're not going to give it your best, and it's just going to be noise off to the side.
yeah, yes. I couldn't agree more. The way I generally frame it and have for most of my career is finding that passion, finding that goal, that reason.
Hmm.
For me, it's the passion to be impactful. It's that passion to do good, uh, or as the physicians would say, do no harm sometimes. And
Yeah.
yes, sometimes there's a lot of clutter in your life that needs to be sorted out and reprioritized, or even discarded, as you suggest, so that you can move forward uh, happily. I mean, as you again, reiterating what you say, being able to go to bed at night and not have to worry about what you just did and how that's hurt people, but
Right.
rather how what you just did is going to make it better, and knowing that tomorrow is going to bring another opportunity for you to be just as impactful. uh, I guess we're getting to the point where we need to wrap this up. As you know, we can talk for hours and have in the
Right.
past. I'm going to flip the script, as it were, and give you an opportunity to basically talk to the audience in the context of what would you like to share? What one or two ideas do you think it's important for a 21st century engineer to embrace and embody as they move through their career?
So I think I would go back and somewhat sum up what we've talked about here. I think first and foremost, you have to have some guiding principles associated with whatever you're doing. If you don't, I don't know that you can navigate from career change to career change, or even in your career as you are today. Uh, you have to establish what those boundaries are. You have to understand what it is that you're looking for, and then you have to move forward in that capacity. I often tell folks that from a career standpoint, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, and I think that that's okay. I really do. Um, I don't know that I want to do engineering every day. I don't know that I want to do construction every day. I do think that I want to impact people positively every day. And in doing that, I think that brings about the idea of having a good life, having a life well served. At the end of the day, there's not a whole lot of magic to it. As long as I feel like I'm doing what I need to, serving the people that I need to, being diligent to those people, to that work, being diligent to my family, taking care of the needs for both employees and my family. I think that as long as I'm satisfying those, then I'm doing what I need to do. And, you know, that's where I find in my career and in my life that I achieve the most satisfaction. If there's days that I don't feel like that I'm doing that, then I look for a solution and I try to find what it is that I'm missing. I try a little harder. I work a little harder, and balancing those two things out is something that is a daily task, as you've suggested already. Uh, Trying to make sure that you don't get overwhelmed by maybe not knowing exactly who you are, what you want to be when you grow up. Trying not to let the daily task overwhelm you, recognizing that you can push through this. It may take a few more hours of hard work, uh, but recognizing that there is no door closed that you don't close on your own is an extremely important thing for the 21st century engineer. Recognizing that they need to be service oriented, I believe. I personally believe that that's extremely important for the 21st century engineer. I think that they'll get back what they put in from a service standpoint. If they get it right, they'll be satisfied. No amount of money that you can make, no amount of hours that you can work, no amount of accolades that you can receive overcome the satisfaction in my personal life associated with doing a good job and impacting others positively.
Sounds to me, to allow me to sum up and in some ways have the last word.
Okay.
Everything you just said, you put on your own shoulders. You're not looking for somebody else to make you success. You're not looking for a magic door to open that you're going to walk through. You're not looking for a lottery win that's going to take you to the next level. It all rests within the investment you make in yourself and your personal dedication to be the best version of a civil engineer, in your case, that you want to be, the best version of an engineer as defined by you. Recognizing as being an engineer, and again, I've mentioned professional licensure earlier. The Order of the Engineer espouses this as well. As you know, I've worked with that organization for most of 2 decades. I've been a member of the organization for four. It's the obligation of an engineer, and I reiterate, it's the obligation of an engineer to be responsible to others, to use
Right.
their talents, their skills, their energy to make it better for others. That does not mean that we don't make a nice chunk of change at the end of the day, but and it doesn't mean we don't have a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, it really is about others and personal responsibility for our success. I
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really appreciate the time. I know you've got a lot of work today that you have to get through. The day's not over for you. And so to take a break, and I won't even ask you about the log cabin or the cabin that you're sitting in. But nevertheless, I do appreciate you taking the time, and for me, again, you've reiterated, and I have found value from the time we've shared today, as I always do every time we have an opportunity to share time. And I hope those that elected to sign in and listen and share this time with us, again, as I said at the outset, have found this a valuable time, and that they'll see returns on that investment of time in their lives. So, again, thanks, Jacob. Have a great day.
Wonderful. You as well. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the